welcome to the Next Experience Academy Special Edition. Today, we're going to be going over what is new in Washington and Workspaces and UI Builder. Today, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Brad Tilton. Brad, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Brad Tilton, and I work on the outbound product management team for our agent experiences, including all of our Next Experience products.
And my name is Maria Gabriela Ochoa Perez-Wechter, and I am a senior outbound product manager on that team that he just said. Today, we are going to be talking about things that are about to be released. When have they announced the GA yet?
I think it's today.
Oh,
I think it happened today.
Awesome. So the point is, if we say any forward-looking statements, please don't make any purchasing decisions based on them. That's what the safe harbor notice is all about. And the couple of housekeeping slides here. Make sure to use Q&A for questions, please. It helps me gather the questions up later to post them on the event. Use the chat for comments. Tell us what you're drinking, how your morning's going. And this session is being recorded. The slides and video will be available at a later time. And what's really funny is I did not update this slide, actually. So our next session is actually going to be on the
third Wednesday in April.
The third Wednesday of April at the same time. It is going to be April 17th, the day right before we're in Denver.
Good to know.
So these sessions are for you. Please ask us questions in the chat. It is a great time to get all your burning questions answered. It's not just a presentation. We'll be doing a demo at the very end. And our next session is April 18th. And one last quick important announcement that we've been announcing for a few months now. The Conversational Interfaces Academy has officially merged with the Next Experience Academy and the AI Academy. Again, as you're here today, the third Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern is the Next Experience Academy. And if you want to learn AI topics on the AI Academy, it's every other Tuesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern.
All right, now it's over to me. So today's session, we're going to focus on what's new in Washington for Workspaces and UI Builder. And then we'll do a little bit of demo of some of those things. And then we'll also give out some information on how you can go deeper in some of those areas. So we're going to be kind of deep diving in some of those topics next week with some different shows on the Dev Program YouTube. So we'll get into that. But before we go into what's new, we'll do kind of a quick intro level set on Workspaces and UIB. So I think I've said this about a million times, but we are in the middle of a multi-year journey to replatform our UI onto our newer tech stack. Our vision is to become the world's most intuitive and modern platform to revolutionize work. And so we're doing that through low code, intelligence, and with a scalable platform. So this will be the only slide that I read from, hopefully. You can see our timeline with the new technology. We released it quite a few releases ago and have been gradually kind of building on it. We've got some different themes through the different releases. And Vancouver and Washington, we're really trying to improve both the fulfiller experience and UI Builder's usability, and then also building in more intelligence into our products. So we're going to be talking about Workspaces. If you don't know anything about Workspaces, some of this may go over your head a little bit, or you may want to circle back to it to see what's new. But our Workspace UI is basically a new way of working for tier 1 and 2 fulfillers specifically, where they get kind of a better, more tailored experience to them and working cases. It's really there for people to be able to do, lots of work at the same time. So multiple incidents and cases. It's a tab-based interface. And it allows our business teams to really build out purpose-built experiences for really specific personas. So a CSM agent may work a little differently than an HR agent. And so our BUs want the flexibility to really build for their personas. I'll talk louder though. All right. You may hear something about agent workspaces or legacy agent workspaces. Those are kind of an older technology that we released back in Madrid. And that was kind of our first version of this tab-based interface. They were fairly rigid though and not very flexible. And so we came out with configurable workspaces in the Quebec timeframe. You're at the point right now where if you're on an agent workspace, you should have already kind of started looking at moving to the appropriate configurable workspace. Our AppU teams have built out lots of these configurable workspaces. I think we'll take a look at HR and service operations workspace today, but you can kind of go look at what the best workspace is for you to use and kind of explore that.
And here's a quick question for you, Brad.
Yeah.
If you've already demoed, let's say someone already demoed workspaces to their service desk to switch over, but the service desk hasn't switched over yet, what kind of suggestions would you have to encourage that switch?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is helping explain the value of workspaces with that tabbed interface. We all know that if you are opening up, cases in multiple browser tabs, it kind of messes up the navigation stack and you end up lost. So workspaces are really good for that. Workspaces also allow for a lot of flexibility in terms of the pages. So you can do a lot of things on the form page. We've also got some features like AWA and agent chat that only work in Workspace. And so those are, nice things to check out and look at. So sometimes it's just training issues. We have customers that aren't comfortable with the way things work in Workspaces, and it just takes some time to get used to it. And then sometimes, there are definitely scenarios where there are maybe agents that just work so differently than what we're targeting with these workspaces, to where it may not make sense for some customers to move to a workspace, and that's fine.
Thank you.
All right, so we talked about workspaces a little bit. UI Builder is the other thing that we're going to talk about today. UI Builder right now is really a page creation, editing, and configuration tool. It allows you to, drag all of these components onto a canvas and connect them together and really extend functionality. And so UI Builder is one of the ways that you can configure and customize the workspaces that we ship. And so if you need to change the way a page looks or something like that, chances are you may end up doing that through UI. And we're going to get into UIB and do some demoing. All right, so what's new in Washington? We'll get into the actual meat of this academy. So real quick, a little bit of an agenda and a list here. I want to start with the side over to the right here, what we're not covering. So as of Washington, we're shipping more than 50 workspaces. So there are obviously some that are kind of bigger than others, like Service Operations Workspace, HR, CSM, FS, Strategic Planning. Some of those workspaces that are kind of the ones people are going to spend the most time in. But we're not going to go over individual features in those workspaces. So our team on the platform, we build out the underlying technology that the application teams then go and build on top of. And so we're not going to cover, if Service Operations Workspace has done something specific, we won't be able to cover that here. But one thing I do want to say is that when you do upgrade to Washington, you will see lots of updates to all of your workspaces. And so that should be a part of your upgrade plan, is to go ahead and also upgrade all of your workspaces that we're delivering through the store as well. And kind of look at all of the new functionality that you're getting there. We also routinely upgrade all of our individual components, or not all of them, but a lot of them. Those should be documented in the doc site. That's too many, and they're all kind of too small to cover in this call. And so those are, if you're interested in a component, it may have an update in this release, but it will be a little higher level than individual components. And then the last one, the CLI and developer tools. So the CLI is our command line interface, where you can build out custom components locally. And then our next experience, developer tools, is a Chrome browser extension that allows you to do some debugging. They both have updates for the Washington release, and we're actually going to go over those next week on our UI Builder live episode, and we'll have some links to those at the end of this session today.
And UI Builder Live, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is a show that we do on the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern over on the ServiceNow Developer Advocates YouTube channel. I'll post a link to it in the chat here shortly. It's a more in-depth, more technical view into UI Builder as compared to this academy, but we also try to make it a lot of fun and a very lighthearted, where we try to do just something in UI Builder. Hopefully it works, sometimes it doesn't, but then we figure it out within 5 minutes of going offline. It's so infuriating, but it's a lot of fun, and I hope that it helps you guys learn something too.
All right, so let's get into Workspace. So we're going to look at what's new in Workspaces, and what's new in Workspaces is really more for the agent persona or the fulfiller persona. And then we'll take a look at what's new in UI Builder, which is really more for our admin developer persona. So Workspace experience. The first one is email. So we started, I think, a couple of releases ago, really making email more of a first-class citizen in Workspace. And our goal is to really have a fully functional email client from the activity stream composer in Workspace. So what we've done in the Washington release is, first off, it is possible now with this component to pop the email composer out into a modeless dialog. And we'll actually get into modeless dialog in a little bit, because that is also a new Washington feature, but it's basically a kind of a modal, but not a modal, it's modeless. And you can drag it around on the screen and interact with the screen behind it. I don't know if any of our out-of-the-box workspaces are actually using that functionality yet, but it is there and can be configured on the record page if you wanted to. We also are auto-saving email drafts. So as you're typing the email, it will auto-save, and then you can click in and look at the drafts that have been saved and revert to it. So these are just some smaller changes where, again, we're really trying to take something like Outlook or Gmail or an actual email client and build that out, because we're hearing from customers that, sending email from a case or an incident is a pretty important part of their agents, usage of the tool.
And while we're on here, will the Workspace email component work with email client templates and quick messages?
It's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So in that case, you should check in on the Academy's page listing that I'm about to post. We have a event listing for each Academy. And when I post the video, I post all the Q&A questions on there. So I'll post the full complete answer at that point. So be sure to tune in and check that out.
And then the last one is, it is easier to insert links to knowledge articles into emails, and then just working with email addresses and everything are a little easier as well. So again, we're really trying to improve the email experience in Workspace. We've also enhanced the record page a little bit. So if the workspace is using the standard record page, and we talked about standard record page in our January Academy, most of the major workspaces are using this new version of the record page at this point. There are a couple of things that we've added. So we've added the ability to configure whether the preview for a record opens up in a new tab or in a popover. So previously it automatically opened in a new tab in the workspace. That's not always the best experience if you just want to quickly glance at some information. So you can see in the screenshot at the bottom left here, the HR workspace is configured to open that in a popover, and then you can click open record and open it in a new tab. So this was a lot of feedback that we had gotten in terms of what people liked about the classic environment that they wanted to see in Workspace. The other thing that we've added in the Washington release is keyboard shortcuts. And so I think we talked about this a little bit in the last Academy, but if you do Command / you will get this pop-up that shows all the keyboard shortcuts. And there are a couple of, there's a few kind of workspace specific shortcuts here where I can focus in on activity stream. I can focus on my record page tabs that go horizontally, or I can focus into the tabs in the contextual sidebar. So this is, an accessibility feature, but then also just allows your agents to work a little easier. This is kind of a new keyboard shortcut framework that we're building out. So you can expect to see more in terms of shortcuts and possibly even the ability to add your own later on. But for now, we've kind of baked in a number of them, and you can open up the little preview here with the Command /. There's also a system property to disable this if you don't want the keyboard shortcuts to pop up, or in your PDI you're using something like SNUtils and don't want the keyboard shortcut to pop up. You can also do that. We've also done a few things with declarative actions where you can now, we've added some menus to the menu, some applications and modules there to make it a little easier to set up new declarative actions. So again, if you're not aware, declarative actions in a workspace are just a way to add actions. So it is similar to a UI action in the classic environment. It's just more steps to set up generally. And then in addition to adding more menus for it, so it's a little easier to navigate to things, we've also automated some of the steps. So I think we went from maybe 7 or 8 steps to 5 or 6 steps to set up a declarative action. So there's still more opportunity for us to improve that process, but we are trying to improve it and make it a little easier. We're also supporting more icons and button colors. And then there's also some functionality around unify actions. So if you're looking at all of your declarative actions, it actually lists declarative actions and UI actions separately. And we've added the ability to flatten that to where they're all in the same list and it's easier to order them. So that was kind of a problem that people were running into in declarative action land, we'll call it. So yeah, some good declarative action enhancements. We're supporting more runtime configuration in Workspace. So, runtime configuration just means that when I'm looking at form or a list as an admin, I can go in and configure that form or list without having to, open a builder and find it and things like that. I can do it directly from runtime. So we are trying to embrace that a little bit more. The form layout is something that we have enabled from runtime. So if you're looking at a workspace form, you can click into the menu at the top right, go down to configure page and hit form layout, and then it will open up a form builder, or it can open up form builder and show you the view that's being shown in the workspace right then. So that's a pretty nice feature, especially if you're having trouble figuring out what view is being shown there. All right. Do we have any questions about Workspace?
We have a bunch of questions. I'm not sure about this one. Does the newer version of Workspaces still require a manual refresh for certain features on update? Example, response templates, fulfilling instructions. This auto updates in the classic form, but Workspace required a refresh to pick up any changes.
It may. I don't know specifically. So we did add, there is like live record page functionality now to where you should see updates on a record page. I'm not sure about some of those specific features, and it depends on the workspace.
Did we hear you say that advanced work assignment and agent chat is only available through Workspaces?
I believe that's the case. I'm a little newer to those features, but I do believe that's the case.
And are there any plans to create metrics to show who and how often users or groups are using Workspaces?
There are. So we've got a tool called User Experience Analytics that will do a lot of things automatically in Workspaces and portals and mobile. And so it allows you to do a lot of measuring on how people are using your different UIs. So yeah, I would look into user experience analytics. We actually did an academy, I want to say it was in July, around how to add user experience analytics hooks into a workspace using UI Builder. But there is a lot already out of the box.
And I posted the link to the Academy's YouTube playlist, the Academy list, and I'll post the YouTube playlist here shortly as well, so you guys have access to that.
We have will there be a demo for the new declarative actions? We're not going to get into declarative actions in today's demo because we don't quite have enough time. But we will have a few knowledge labs this year that'll show some declarative action, show how to configure those. But the process is not that different in Washington. We have just automated parts of it.
And there is also a fantastic, really awesome article on the community about declarative actions that I will link as well.
And then we had crafting an app with a workspace. If I want the action button to invoke a workflow, how can I do that? Is it possible with no code? So you can, if you want to invoke a flow, you would do that. You could do that with a UI action and call the flow API through the UI action. It's probably the easiest way. There's no low code way that I'm aware of to invoke a flow. I think you have to use the API to do it.
I don't know about this one. Is there a way for the logo in the top left corner to send you to your default workspace instead of your default dashboard?
There is no concept of a default workspace, so I think that would be no. Here, let me read through. So I don't think we'll be demoing an interactions page. If you want a demo of some functionality, you can always reach out to your sales team to do demos, but I don't think we'll cover interactions here. Will runtime configurations all be captured in update sets? So I'll show what that looks like, but basically you're just opening Form Builder. So it's not a different configuration. It's just an easier way to get to whatever tool you'll use to configure things. So yes, it would get captured in an update set. All right, so let's go ahead. There's more questions, but we're going to go ahead and move on. Well, one more I'll look at. Is there a plan to auto refresh lists within a workspace? There are a couple of different strategies for doing this now, and it is something that we're looking at, kind of the possibility of something like a live list that auto refreshes, but not something that's in the Washington release.
And if we don't get to your questions during the Q&A section later on in the show, we will be posting the answers with the video at a later time. All right, so we've looked at workspaces. Let's take a look at UIB and see what is new. So the first one is that UI Builder is moving to the store. And so what that means is that when you upgrade to Washington, you will have to go in and do an update to UI Builder itself. So the first question is, why would you do this? Why are you making me do multiple updates? Well, the reason that we're moving to the store is that the store lets us release 4 times a year instead of twice a year. So we'll be able to really deliver value a little faster. So there will be a May store release of UI Builder that's going to have some good stuff in it, to where if we didn't have UI Builder on the store, that would have to wait until Q3 when we release Xanadu. So again, UI Builder moved to the store. What that means is that when you upgrade to Washington, you need to go in and update UIB. In the future, we are going to try to have UIB prompt you to update if it knows that it's out of date. But for now, for probably the next couple of store releases, you'll have to do that manually. And you can always pay attention to our Academy or the UI Builder live show, and we will make sure that everyone knows, when a new store release is out and what's in it.
All right, so probably my favorite thing in the Washington release is visual data binding for UI Builder, and we will take a look in the instance on kind of how this works. But basically, when you're doing data binding in UIB, in the past, it was kind of an IntelliSense-like, dot walking feature where you had to know the API, and then you had to know all of the properties and everything and what they mean. So visual data binding, we've kind of removed all of that. And you get this modal when you launch data binding, and it'll tell you, here's all the different data types. You can click into them. You'll have some context around how some of the formulas work. And it'll also list all of the things that are available to you. So there's a lot of user properties that you can get to, and there are some different types of things that you have access to that are not always, they weren't very obvious before. The way the formulas work is really nice too. It gives you a lot more info on how you can put together a formula and what it does, and gives you examples and things like that.
Not sure if you mentioned it, but my favorite part of this visual data binding is if you have data being pulled from a data resource, it shows you the default data in the little parentheses there. So you can tell if you're not getting data into something that you're expecting data from. And it's just so much easier to tell also how it's putting out the data, whether it's like a sys ID or the actual text and things like that. It just makes it a lot clearer to use. And it's my favorite feature.
Nice. All right, so that's visual data binding. The next one is, and again, the theme for this release in UIB is really just, usability and making things easier to use. So we've kind of changed the way that data resources and scripts are displayed to where they should be a little bit more obvious. And you can see that in the screenshot on the left, but when we get into the instance, we'll see that a little more. And then when you add a new data resource, we have a new dialog that comes up. It surfaces the most commonly used data resources to the top. Then it'll show you data resources that are in the same scope that you're in, if there are any, and then it'll kind of show you a list of all of them. We've also tried to do a better job of documenting what the data resource is supposed to do and how the configuration works on the right here. And so it should be a lot easier to add data resource. We also renamed lookup record and lookup records to look up a single record and look up multiple records, because I don't know how many times I have made the mistake of choosing the wrong one, and I've definitely seen other people do it. And so this was a little change, but one that was near and dear to me, because I always disliked the old way to add data resources. All right. The other thing that we've added is, this is less about usability and more about new functionality. But we've added modeless dialogues. So modeless dialogues, I mentioned earlier, they are going to work similarly to popovers and modals in terms of, you kind of define them at the top of the UIB page, and then there are different ways to launch them with an event handler. But modeless dialogues, basically, they're similar to modals and popovers, but they let you interact with the page content behind them, and you can also resize them and drag them around the page. So something like an email composer is a nice thing to put in there, where you might be doing some things on a ticket while also composing an email at the same time. But really anything like that, you might want to use a modeless dialogue for. We've also updated the column layouts, the column layout functionality, with just more enhancements around making it easier to do things from multiple places. So I can right click in the content tree and add columns. I can change the layout and do more configuration without having to click into it, go over to the right, click into the configuration, click into styling. And so just making things a little easier in terms of column layouts. And then we've also improved the configuration panel and added some more options there, like distribute columns evenly, and some things like that. We've also updated the tab and image components a little bit, to where with the tab, you can now add more tabs in line. So when you're working with it in the design preview, it's a little easier to work with. You don't have to click into it and then click into configuration. And then for the image and icon components, you can use custom images for your icons and that sort of thing. And then we've made the icon search much easier to use. You can see on the right here, you just see more of them at once. It's not just a drop-down list. And so that has made my life a little easier already as I'm working in the Washington release.
And I can't remember, did we get a GIF to work in the icon?
I think we got a GIF to work.
So
but
yes,
I can't remember exactly.
check out UI Builder Live when we when I derailed the conversation and got us to try out a GIF in the icons.
So form builder integration, I already showed how you can launch form builder from the runtime view of a workspace, but you can also launch form builder from any record page that's using the standard record page layout using that edit form view button. And so this is really part of our builder unification process where we want you to be able to do what you're looking to do from multiple places. So whatever context you're in, we want you to be able to edit that thing in that context without having to close your current builder and go open another builder and that sort of thing. So form builder is one example of that. Again, one of my favorite parts about this is that you don't necessarily need to hunt down a specific form view. Sometimes the form view gets passed from a UX page property to a data resource to the form component, and it's kind of hard to hunt down exactly what that view is from the page in UIB, and so this makes that a little easier. And then it's demo time. We want to stop and answer a couple of questions before demo.
Is there a detailed guideline on how to integrate platform analytics dashboard on your landing page in UI Builder?
There's not a detailed guide, but we will sort of do that a little bit as part of the demo.
I was also talking about a potential collab with the Platform Analytics Academy, where we could hop on and do a session with them. Is there a way to auto redirect users to Workspace without having to update the SP entry script include? That's
a little tougher question. We do have some functionality that SOW uses to redirect to a home page, but I believe it's locked down at the moment to where only our apps can use it. There's a couple of strategies, but there's nothing just totally clear cut on how to do that.
Best case might be to check the community or post your question on there to see when you get answers. Wasn't there a version that recently released where the spacing around the fields got a lot better in Workspaces?
Yeah, it was a couple of releases ago. There's a property that I think you turn on maybe, and if you're using the standard record page, the form changes based on how much width you have there. So probably check out our What's New in UI Builder for Vancouver episode, since I seem to remember it. If not Utah, for more details on that property. All right, and of course, I am logged out. So let's log back in. Of course. And we will jump into this demo. So we're going to start with looking at some of the workspace stuff that we have. So let's go ahead and we will open up HR Agent Workspace. So one of the things that we mentioned, and let's see if I can make it do the thing. No, that one may not be set up for. One of the things that I mentioned was email. So if I look at the email here, you'll see composing my email. It's going to auto save. And I can go into view drafts and I can see my drafts here. I've already been messing with this a little bit this morning, but I believe I can delete drafts or I can revert to a previous draft. But yeah, so email drafts, auto saving, it's going to tell me that it auto saved here, which is nice. And then this is the functionality that by default, we're popping into a new tab, but you can also have it pop into a modeless dialog here as well. So that's one. We won't look too much at actions. And the other thing that I wanted to show was the popovers. So again, instead of opening this in a new tab, which can be kind of disruptive if you just want to glance at information, we've got a popover, and then I can always open it up in a new tab here. And then we also talked about runtime config. So if I click on my name and then come down to form layout, it's going to take me to form layout, and then I can ask it to open. Oh, I should get a dialog. I may have done this already and dismissed the dialog for the future, but you can go to form layout, and then you should get something that pops up and lets you go to form builder as well.
It
That's
must
right,
be, it must be a universal experience trying to change a form layout and it not working.
Yeah.
And you spending 30 minutes trying to figure out why, only to find out you're on the wrong view. If you're a developer or an administrator and you tell me you've never experienced that, I won't believe you.
All right, so there's some of the workspace enhancements. So let's take a look at UI Builder. And there is something that I didn't mention that I think the slide got lost somewhere. But I'm going to come in and we're going to add a new page to SOW. And one of the things that we've done in this release was we basically went through and updated all of the old templates, or most of the old templates, to where is UIB updated in this release?
It should be.
Or in this? So we went through and added more templates. That's right. So we've added more templates here. One of them is this dashboards templates. And so if let's call this Academy Dashboard.
That's something I've noticed trying to use the same instance for multiple different demos and shows, is that it's not acceptable to just name things test 1, test 2, because I've ended up with dozens of pages now that are badly named. Do as we say, not as we do. Name your things appropriately.
So this is actually one of the ways, if you want to add dashboard capability into a workspace, you can use the dashboard template there. We're not going to go too far into it right now because we don't have a ton of time, but that is something you can use there. I'm going to actually create, well, let's just do this while we're here. So a couple of things that we wanted to demo. One thing is you can kind of see the data binding looks a little different if you're used to UIB, and I'll zoom in one more time maybe, to where you can see on the mouse over, you can see what the actual data binding is, but here it's a little more visual. And if I click into that, I'll see that for the tab sysid for this dashboard component, we are looking at the properties, and then we're passing in this tab sysid property. So this is something that would not be very discoverable pre-Washington. I don't even know that I have all these things, but with Washington, you can explore this a little more. So we're just going to delete this, and then we'll add a component here, and we'll play with the data binding a little bit. So let's add a stylized text component. Another thing that we did is a lot of our components have presets, and this is a real little change, but we took none that used to be at the bottom and put it up at the top, because a lot of the time you don't want your component to use a preset. You're going to want to go ahead and configure it yourself. So let's go ahead, let's do two things here. Let's first look at this data and scripts panel. So you can see this has changed. We used to have these three little icons in the bottom left. They were hard to use, and it was hard to get a full picture of what the logic of your page looks like. You know, we can see what the layout is over here, and now I can see the logic a little bit. So this is kind of helpful to me because I used a page template, and so it had a couple of client scripts in it already, and that would not have been very discoverable before. I would have had to click into the client scripts and see that. And so adding a client state parameter works through this modal here, so that hasn't changed too much. But the add data resource panel is one thing I wanted to show. Most of the time when I'm adding a data resource, I'm looking up multiple records. So maybe we add that. And then I can configure that data resource here. So maybe I can query some incidents. And we'll just get them all. There's only a couple. And then I believe I'm done at this point. So I can get rid of that. And I have my data resource here. I can always come in and rename it and things like that. But now that shows up at the bottom. So let's look a little bit at the visual data binding. So if I open that up, I can see that I've got my page properties. I have any data resources that I have, which in this case is just the one. And then I have access to all my client state parameters. And then if I'm inside of a repeater, I also have the repeater option here, which is nice. I can, click into the repeater settings as well. And so let's do something where we use a formula and we say, I think concat is my favorite formula here. And so we could say something like, I think I can go number of records and
Yeah, this makes it so much easier.
and then in values, I can come in and click data types, data resource, results. Ooh, I forget how to do this. I think results, there's a way for me to get the length of this, and we're gonna try it here. So this is not a great example of
Lengths
what this
also.
is.
Could lengths also be in formulas or no?
There probably is a length formula. I can't type. All right, let's just let's do this instead. Let's go. Let's just show the incident number. This is a bad demo. I apologize. Number of records found. Sure, I can do that. There we go. So obviously it didn't work perfectly, but it is kind of a nice way to do that. I could probably do length here, but we won't mess with that right now. But there are a lot of formulas. The formulas for the most part are going to tell you how they work, give you an example, and then let you use them up at the top here. So a really good way, especially if you're newer to UIB, to come in and learn how some of these things work.
I want to point something out that tripped me up at first about visual data binding that Brad has kind of just done, is if you click on one of the values real quick, so go back to data types, or rather, data types, and find something from the data resource. The way that he is getting the information to show up in the builder itself, is when you click on an item, an arrow shows up, and you should click that arrow to get that pill to show up above, and then you have to click apply in order for it to be applied. It's not something that your muscle memory will get used to at first, but you'll eventually get it. It's just not very obvious when we're seeing demos to see that what he's doing is clicking the pill, clicking the up arrow, and then clicking apply for it to be applied.
And you can double click the pill or drag and drop like little message does as well. All right. So we're a little short on time, but a modeless dialog, it has a little bit more, there's a little bit more you can do with it compared to a modal or a popover. Like you can set the height and width and all sorts of things with it. But ultimately it's working the same way where you're going to define this like a modal, add content to it, and then you'll pop it with an event. There are some new event handlers that let you do that. And so modeless dialog can be pretty handy, especially in cases where you're having to maybe work on something while look at something else on the same page. Form builder integration, image and icon components. So let's show the image and icon components. I want you to go away. We'll just click somewhere else. So let's go ahead and add a component after. And we'll add an icon. I don't need a preset. We'll make it a little bigger. And then you can see that the icon dropdown has changed. I can see a whole lot more at one time. Search is a little better. So if I wanted to use some sort of number icon, I can. But I can also come in and choose a custom image here as well. So this is the DB image table. I can look at those images, I can source an image, or I could upload an image from my computer. So just more flexibility when it comes to images in here. All right, and then I think for the demo, that's it. So let's go ahead and back over to the PowerPoint here. And so before we do Q&A, I wanted to get to a few things. So next week, we're doing a little bit of a dev program, UI Builder and Workspaces deep dive roadshow thing, where we are going to be on Creator Toolbox on Tuesday morning for me. And then we'll kind of do a little bit more in-depth demo of what we did today and go a little deeper in some areas. Again, that is kind of a developer-focused, admin and developer-focused show. Then we will have our UI Builder live show on Thursday. That is at 3 p.m. Central. And in that show, we're going to focus on next experience developer tools. We will have our inbound product manager and some of our engineers that built out the developer tools Chrome extension on that show to show us how it works and answer lots of questions. So if you've got any questions about developer tools and component building, that is a great show to watch, because we're going to have a lot of expertise on. It won't be just stuck with myself and Gabby, but we'll have a lot of people on it. And then live coding happy hour on Friday. We will be on building something in UI Builder in Washington, and that should be a fun time. So again, these are all on the developer program YouTube channel. So if you go to devlink.sn/YouTube, you'll get to that channel. And then these are all different series you can subscribe to. And yeah, so we've got all of that. So we've got a bunch of resources in terms of our next experience community. It's great for questions. Our COE has all of our content on it. There is a UI Builder course on Now Learning. It's been updated as of Utah. We're actually skipping Vancouver for that course and going to release a Washington version right around knowledge time, I think. And then we also have the Agent Chat, AWA, and Sidebar community available as well. Again, I mentioned UI Builder Live. We do have our Academy playlist as well, and all of the links have been added in there. And then, Live on ServiceNow does all sorts of events, not just what we're doing. And then I think here we go. So we've got about 5 minutes for questions. So let me run through some. If the questions are too involved, we probably can't answer them on here.
Is Field Watcher in Next Experience yet?
Field Watcher is not compatible with the new UI. So what the best strategy for being able to use Field Watcher is just to have one of your user accounts, and just have an admin user account in your dev instance that is on the old UI, and then you can watch the field from there. It's not perfect, but we have seen that work. So we have a question about multiple workspaces, and so it's a really specific question that I don't think we have a good answer for, but in general, we have heard from customers, a lot of customers, that they have agents that are using multiple workspaces. So you might have an agent that's working incidents and CSM cases. And so that is something that we're kind of looking at how we're going to solve it in terms of not making them jump around or letting them use functionality from multiple workspaces. Then we had a question about workspaces and dashboards. So workspaces do work really well with the new platform analytics experience dashboards. And so there's not really a workspace dashboard specifically. Workspace just has lots of pages. And one of those pages is what I showed, where you can add the dashboard analytics center to your workspace. And in that case, you can use any platform analytics experience dashboards within your workspace. There is, if you look at the Platform Analytics Academy, there will be lots of information on the classic dashboards and the new Platform Analytics experience and what their plans are in terms of migrating and things like that. So I would check with them. I think that's about all that we can answer live here. But we will, oh, that was a loud noise right behind me. We will go ahead and get all of these at least addressed and posted when we post this video.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that awesome info, Brad. I hope everybody had some fun with our new format that will probably maybe be like a once yearly event if we ever end up on another on-site like this. But I hope everybody enjoyed the special edition episode where we're sitting side to side and you can see how much shorter I am than Brad. Thank you all so much for joining. Again, our next episode is going to be April 17th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you all so much for the questions, for the comments, and I hope you all have a happy rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye.